also apologize that we are starting for 30 minutes late. It's not in our character. That's because it's not exactly the same. But because we need to be a little bit flexible for a program like this. And that's why we are starting 30 minutes late. So may I implore every one of us please to rise up on our feet as we take the national anthem. We are going to take two stanzas of our national anthem, which we believe also will cover our opening prayer. So the national anthem, please. Those who are candidates who are guests seated here. We have the Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic and Research, Professor Wally Family. Please bring him to the recognition. We also have Professor Akufele here with us. You are welcome. Professor Bola Oko is here. You are also welcome. We have the Lady Lawson, Commissioner for Transportation, Lagos State. You are welcome. Prince Bola Olawa, Commissioner for Housing. You are welcome. Mr. Latif Shulebo, Managing Director, Lagos State Urban Renewal Authority. You are welcome. We have Aizibode Obino, Species for Gene S40 is here. Please let me feel welcome. Dr. Olajimoke Akiode of the Center for Ethics and Sustainable Development. You are welcome. We have Kampana Afsa Bill, NITP, that's the University of Kampana. You are welcome. We also have Mr. Ayo Shulga, NGCO, M. Homes. You are welcome. Mr. Adijano, NGCO, Realty Point Limited. You are welcome. Mr. Joe Femi Davino, you are welcome to our guests. We also have here with us Mr. Babatunde Obadamosi. You are welcome. I'm sure as we proceed with this program, all other dignitaries that are not seated will be duly recognized. At this juncture, I would like to call on the founding director of the Center for Housing and State Development, University of Lagos, Professor T.G. Nubi, to take us forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good evening again, ladies and gentlemen. Let's respond now. At least you look me pay for that. It's a pleasure to really welcome you. Before the opening remark, let me express our heart gratitude to the University of Lagos, to the presidential aspirants that are seated already. Let's appreciate them. We have them with us seated. We have in no particular order. Okay, let's follow the order that we are seated here. For my immediate right, we have Mr. Isaac Oshitelu, the presidential aspirant for Accord Pass Repurposing. Candidates. Okay, candidates. Okay, we're going to candidates in the university. So, candidates for Accord Party. We also have seated next to him Mr. Fela Bureaucracy of Alliance for New Nigeria, ANP. Sorry, it's ANP. And then we have Mr. Omoyele Shoko. Congress, we also have Dr. Mrs. Obi Esplesi, we also have Professor Kinsley, who the ruler of the non-progressive party, YPP. You are welcome, sirs and ma'am. Let me welcome Mr. Vice Chancellor of the University of Lagos, ably represented by the BBC, Academics and Research, Professor Fabio. The presidential candidates has introduced the special guests, members of the university community, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen. Housing is the bedrock of any civilization. In the United States, it is the core of the American dream. In UK and other developed countries, it is the center of national welfare and socio-economic transformation programs. Several Asian and even African countries have hinged social reform on their housing sectors. The pivotal role of housing in the global economy is appreciable if we recall the events of between 2007 and 2008, when the subprime lending in the mortgage sector led to the bubble and bust that eventually triggered the global recession. Many nations were still facing it. Even then, the UK, US, and China used the power of investments in housing to come out of the recession. The British minister then, David Cameron, then said, and I quote, "We will build Britain out of recession." And they went ahead and did. They were building cities like the Kings, 270,000 housing units per annum, and they built UK out of recession as said. Unfortunately, housing issues in Nigeria have traditionally been treated as a naughty offer that can be ignored or neglected, or at least be paid lip service to. But the nations that took such stand often do so at their peril. housing programs in Nigeria, pre and post-independence, are as many and varied as our political experience. The effectiveness or failure of these programs are evident in the ever-increasing housing deficit, which as of today stands at 17 million, along with high growth of slums and predominant numbers of population living in slum-like conditions across the country. The housing crisis gained political attention in the late 70s, when the political party NPN adopted housing as a slogan. In Yoruba, they called them Egbe Onile, with a house printed in the center of the party logo. The Shagari housing across the country are the living testimonies of the program. In Lagos, the beneficiaries of January administration housing division efforts are grateful for generations to come. Since then, attempts at national level in housing provision have been a drop in the mighty ocean of the quality and quantity housing deficit facing the country. In 2006, the national government appointed us, some of us, into the Technical Board of Federal Housing Authority. The mandate was to design a blueprint for the nation's housing system. This was also presented to the subsequent government of the late President Yahya. We designed a framework that was to deliver 2 million house units within 4 years. This would have revolutionized the entire nation under the plan. For example, under the plan was actually to build 10,000 housing units in the first year. Ladies and gentlemen, building 10,000 house units involved using 36 million blocks, 110,000 windows, and 110,000 doors were required just for 10,000 house units. Can we imagine the number of human and material resources required to produce 36 million blocks? That is the potential of housing to resolve unemployment and poverty dilemma. Housing, indeed, is the foundation for industrialization. The multiplier effect of any program that delivers housing in millions can never be estimated. The Center for Housing and Sustainable Development was established in December 2014 to play a critical role in ensuring that Nigerians get out of the problem of qualitative and quantitative housing deficit that is becoming definitive in our cities, towns, and villages. With a long-term vision of providing international comprehensive research and capacity building services, the Center was established to provide policy engaged in academic research, capacity building courses, and advocacy in the field of housing. The real estate development and real estate development management, we are persuaded at the center that for our nation to survive, investment and support in the housing sector should occupy the center stage in the next 20 years. That is why we are partnered with organizations like National Real Estate Foundation and Housing for Housing and Urban Development, and Federal Group to organize this town hall meeting to ensure that the coming political dispensation, housing sector occupies its place as the catalyst for economic growth and development in Nigeria. We have solicited questions from stakeholders across the housing value chain, from citizens on the social media. We have collated these questions into all areas of concern, bearing in mind that this issue reflects the concerns of Nigerians. The Center is committed to the propagation of a policy document to reflect the outcome of this evening's discussion. And this will be made available to all government stakeholders. I pray that the objective of this gathering will be met. Thank you so much, and God bless you. I will hand over to Mr. I will now call on the representative of the Vice Chancellor, our Deputy Vice Chancellor of American Research, Professor Wale Family, to be the Vice Chancellor's recommendation.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The Vice Chancellor is unable to be present. I'm therefore standing in for him, and I'm going to read his remarks. The presidential candidates introduced to us, special guests of honor that are here present with us, members of the university community, gentlemen of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed my great pleasure to welcome you on this 11th day of the month of January, the year 2019, to the University of Lagos, University of First Choice and the nation's pride. As you all know, we are gathered here to have a discourse on Nigeria's housing sector, and we have asked the ladies and gentlemen who aspire to direct their care of the nation in the next 4 years to do this with us. As people in the classroom, in formal communities, youth, academia, government, and professionals, as businessmen and end users, the only purpose that we are gathered here is to tackle the remote housing challenge facing our nation, Nigeria. This is because we understand the impact of housing in our social and economic welfare. In many nations of the world, housing market contributes significantly to the GDP and it still is catalyst for economic development. We are here because we desire to see the housing industry take its place in social economic development of Nigeria. Not only that, as individuals, we want access to affordable and decent homes in decent neighborhoods. Unfortunately, due to a national housing deficit estimated to be about 70 million units, production rate of about 100,000 housing units annually, about half of the Nigerian population are living in slum-like conditions. With a home ownership rate of 25%, the lowest in Africa. The World Bank estimates that 700,000 new homes are being across Nigeria to address this deficit. So we recognize this challenge, and as it affects our lives and individuals seeking a home, comfort, and business seeking investment in housing sector, as government agencies and as NGOs seeking greater welfare for humanity and our youth, and then looking forward to a better tomorrow. Therefore, we are all united today in this hall, in seeing ways of this, the way out of this quagmire, as we uphold the tenets of democracy. This is the very first time we have eminent Nigerians seeking the premier position, coming to honor such a town hall. To come and let us know your plans for the nation. I wish to thank all of you for honoring the call, and as we proceed, let us remember that today we are all part of government, and the outcome of all discussions will be expected to be delivered in future policies. The University of Lagos is indeed proud to be the pioneer university to build the town and down the right in matters of national progress. As is also proud that several eminent candidates that have interest in students, teachers, administrators of the university. The university is also particularly glad that this event is being carried out in collaboration with the University of Lagos Center for Housing and Sustainable Development. This center is one of the growing number of centers of excellence which the University of Lagos has launched in its agenda for innovation and advancement development of country in all its spheres. It is with this brief remark that I declare this event open and welcome you all again to this event and look forward to a highly beneficial town hall meeting. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, sir. Let's appreciate the Vice Chancellor. Thank you. Let me call on Mr. Sheikh Awusu to come forward and lead the House. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I stand on a distinct protocol. Before I start with the House rules, I just need to I want us to put our hands together better than ever before for the candidates sitting on the floor. And I said that principally because we are all aware that it takes approximately a month to get people of this caliber where they're sitting. And we did not start a month ago. So our invitation came late. And because of that, most of them have to break, their campaign to be here. It's a huge sacrifice. What differentiates us from other animals, apart from us being social animals, is because we have rules that are written down. We've been used to debates, we've been used to having candidates come together and we hailing, hearing, shouting, giving side comments and the rest, but this is different. And because of that, we need to let you know the rules that apply from this moment. Civility is declining in our socio-political space globally, and Nigeria is no different. I'm sure you know that already if you're on social media, if you're watching TV, and we seem to have lost the capacity to have constructive conversations about things that matter. Across our communities and gatherings, political, religious, social, academic, regardless of the theme, people mostly are not interested in finding agreement, and some even attend public events with a goal of starting an argument. We are happy to announce that we don't have people with such demeanor in our midst today. Suffice to say, tonight is historically different. This meeting is about ideation, the creative process of generating, developing, and communicating new ideas, where an idea is understood as a basic element of thought that can be either visual, concrete, or abstract. Ideation comprises all stages of thought, from the thought cycle, from innovation to development to actualization. We are rubbing minds and weighing hearts. We are raising argumentation without being argumentative. The formal demonstrates the will to contribute meaningfully with decorum from a graceful heart and from depository that elicits a deep wealth of knowledge, while the latter will be emblematic of a chronic internal misalignment and social maladjustment. We hereby call for the candidates and the we hereby implore all participants to, first, participate with intention by religiously adhering to the rules and issues at hand, which is state of housing market in Nigeria. We're not talking about Boko Haram, we're not talking about LASMA, we're not talking about the military, we're not talking about any other thing but housing. State of Nigeria's housing market, strictly. We are eager to explore, we are eager to listen to you, we are eager to know where we are coming from, to be enlightened about where we are and be guided on where we hope to be and how to get there from each candidate's perspective. We want to hear and learn from you. Appreciate the diversity of perspectives by employing the tenets of wisdom based on your experience, while we implore the supporters in the audience to maintain decorum so that we can win time. I think we understood that in plain English. And also, this kind of meeting was not designed to support arguments, but learning with shared understanding. Maintain a respectful space. We all deserve respect and kindness. It is not about who is right, but what is right. We strongly believe our prejudices have been checked outside the University of Lagos gates upon entry. Digression from the issues will no doubt necessitate the truncation of transmission from your microphone. Stay on topic at all times and be as brief and as direct as you can. It is your individual manifestos we are discussing as it relates to the issue at hand. You are communicating with the people and not merely talking to each other. So let us prioritize Nigeria and Nigerians by focusing on housing market and your plans for Nigeria unseen. To the audience, Asian devices, that is Chinese phones, especially those that miraculously ring like fire alarms, when they are wired on silent mode, should not be used at this time. We are done and safely outside the premises of the University of Lagos. Having taken care of the procedural niceties and elucidated the ground rules, I take it that the terms and conditions we often skip on the other platforms are really understood and acknowledged in this regard. Let me hand you over to our eminent moderators, distinguished Mr. Roland Vinyoba, the founder of Roland Vinyoba Real Estate Real Foundation for Housing and Urban Development, and Dr. Taibat Aronson, co-director, Center of Housing and Sustainable Development in England, for this session. Do note that clarity is not achieved by sanctity or surplusage. Brevity is essential. An extension of thought beyond the time allotted will neither be excused or palliated. The post-event reports will follow Chatham House rules, so you are free to express yourself. We also welcome your manifesto as an attachment after the program so that we can have a robust documentation which we will share with you and share with Nigerians. Transformation begins with cultivation of character, so we don't expend scarce resources on duly on managing our sins. I believe we will all comply. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Stella. Okay, we're starting off business on the town hall. Now, why put all of this together? We acknowledge that most of the candidates have proposed housing interventions in their manifestos. So the questions that were drawn were basically by stakeholders. Each candidate has about 2 minutes to respond to each question. Dr. Adeyemi, right over there, who's our time keeper. Dr. Adeyemi, please. Okay, Dr. Adeyemi will let you know when it's 30 seconds into your, to the end of the 2 minutes, and then he will stop you at the appropriate time. So I think Tyler wants to let us know some of the places where we have gotten questions from.
Thank you, everybody. We have received questions from the Nigerian Institute of Quantity Surveyors, Nigerian Institute of Town Planners, Spaces for Change Organization, the University of Lagos Department of Estate Management, the Center for Ethics and Sustainable Development, the Lagos State Ministry of Housing, the University of Lagos Center for Housing and Sustainable Development, various hubs under the Africa Research Universities Alliance, Center of Excellence for Urbanization and Habitable Cities, the Heinrich Ball Foundation, Arctic Infrastructure, and close to 100 questions from social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Thank you very much, Dr. Taylor. So we'll go right into the question. Our first question today borders on land. The review of the 1978 Land Use Act is long overdue. As presidential candidates, what specific steps would your government take to exit the act from its constitution and ensure its speedy reform in order to have easy access to land for housing, especially for the low and middle income? Thank you. So we'll start with Professor Morgan. Thank you. 2 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Clearly, my government, as President of Nigeria, will move for the repeal of the Land Use Act. The reason is that I think the Land Use Act might have been necessary at some point, but today has outlived its purpose. It has created a massive bureaucracy concerning land titling that prevents investment with economic efficiency in the housing sector. It has trapped about $300 billion of debt capital in this country's economy today because the ownership of land by the state with only grants and certificate of occupancy reduces the economic scope of what individuals can do with their land to raise capital if they were to own their land in freehold. So, my government will certainly be moving for the repeal of the Land Use Act. We will be replacing it. We'll be moving for the repeal and proposing an executive bill that makes land titling under private ownership much more efficient. That is going to be our core approach to the Land Use Act. Thank you.
Dr. Ondo.
To the challenges of building consensus on what to do with the Land Act. There is no doubt that it will be politically difficult to get everyone on board. The necessity for us to uphold that act because of the barrier that it has created to not just housing, but every aspect of industrialization in our country. Therefore, a key thing is going to be to provide all stakeholders the evidence of how this act has limited the economy. That data is going to bring more people to the table to do something about that act than merely telling them that we want to repeal the act. Having shown the evidence to the different stakeholders, the most important thing is going to be an acceleration process for actually evacuating that act and putting in place a new system of access to land that is very transparent, that is very efficient.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. All right,
thank you. I want to apologize to students who are here that the two most prominent candidates, APC and PDP, are not here because it comes from electoral to no scratch.
Mr. Tower, not for me.
Started in 1978 when they smuggled the Land Use Act into the Nigerian Constitution. That was done by Obi's father. This country has not had any progress. What we need is to return to land ownership. But we must be careful not to return to the kind of customary ownership of land that we had in Nigeria before independence, in which just a few people own land to the extent that the majority are left without land. What I will do is go after the Nigerian Constitution. The 1999 Constitution is a fraudulent document imposed on the Nigerian people by the Nigerian government. That document was expunged by the will of the Nigerian people and will replaced with a living document that will discuss the debated and deliberated of the Nigerian people. And that document will pass through a referendum. And in that document, a Land Use Act will become a thing of the past. And Nigerians can decide who owns land.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Mr. Bureaucracy.
Well, good evening, everyone. And good evening to all Nigerians watching, both at home and in diaspora. Thank you for the opportunity to share. My understanding of housing is best summarized in a philosophy. You either build homes or you build prisons. Posting on the street leads to crime, and crime will eventually find new homes for them in prisons. The only problem with prisons is that they don't pay rent. So if they were government houses, they would grow, they would pay their parents. And so for me, I also believe that home ownership is one of the most important things to having a sense of citizenship. In any nation where people don't own homes, they don't feel like they are part of that country. They don't feel like nationals. And therefore it's easy for them to relocate to any other country that they want. One of the first things that happens when Nigerians relocate abroad is they first of all buy houses. And that makes them have a sense of belonging. So the first thing I'm going to do, the Federal led administration come May 29, 2019, is to declare a state of emergency on housing.
Thank you, sir.
And to make sure that we put together all the stakeholders to come together in a federal housing vision that says we want to make sure every Nigerian has access to cheap, affordable, safe, attractive, and most importantly, functional homes. How do we get that done? It's what we'll put together, get all the legislators together, get all the minds, the brilliant minds, both at home and in diaspora. But the most important thing is we've got to bring the people together, share the vision, and they will bring.
Thank you very much.
Is on what would they do with the Land Use Act
in our 4-year program, we have a policy called Operation Access Nigeria. Nigeria right now is not accessible because our land is in the hands of few cronies through the Land Use Act. So what we're going to do is, through discussions and conversation with stakeholders, we will repeal and probably replace. Right now, we can blame, but we are not in the business of blaming other people. If you are a government worker and you are between level 1 and level 5, you are not part of Nigeria. Because we take the marks, and we do that. We know how to do it. But I'm going to challenge, because this is the standard of education and engineering in Nigeria. The cost of the materials for housing is one of our problems. If you are on the 1 to 5, you can only access less than 1 million naira to build a house. If you are between level 5 and level 10, you can only access 1.5 million naira. Every stage in this federation, they will tell you that.
Thank you very much, sir.
So I'm going to ask a question, and we're going to tell me whether your government will, yes or no. Currently, housing is bundled, the Ministry of Housing is bundled with works, power, and works and power, essentially. So in your government, will you prioritize housing with a separate ministry and a strong framework for implementation in line with SDG 11 that has categorical targets and indicators? I start with Mr. Oshiteli. Yes or no? No. No. Thank you. Mr. Rosary?
Yes.
Sure. Dr. Obi? Professor Kinsey?
The easiest question in the world. Yes.
Thank you very much. So housing is going to be a priority for all our candidates. Fantastic. Which brings me to the next question. The 1999 Nigerian Constitution, Chapter 2, Section 3D, guarantees the right to adequate housing for all Nigerians. What would you do to protect this right, especially for vulnerable people, women, those living in informal communities, people living with disabilities, and those currently internally displaced Nigerians? So we start from the center of the room, and then we go ahead. So we start from Mr. Shore. 2 minutes.
That particular section of the Nigerian Constitution suffers a major defect, and that right is not restricted. You cannot go to court to sue the Nigerian government if you have no home. So that is why I said that the Nigerian Constitution 1999 is a fraudulent document created by the military and imposed on us. What we need to do that every Nigerian citizen must be entitled to a place to lay their head at night, a home. And we have to make the investments. And what I propose, what our government will do, is to put aside $3.6 billion. And I mean this, we should turn this country into a construction site where we are building homes. We are in need of 17 million homes. Over 80 million Nigerians are without homes. What we do is to set the standard that an average of 5 Nigerians should be entitled to a house. The father, the mom, and at least 3 kids. And the moment when we do that, then we're talking about all the chapters of our constitution that guarantees the right to shelter. Without making investment, without building homes, without making policies, I'm not talking about mounting policies. Look, our problem in Nigeria is that the rich, the 1% of our population already have too many houses.
Thank you, Mr.
Is it working? Yeah. Okay, very good. My government will protect the rights of citizens to adequate housing by pursuing a very aggressive policy of social housing, number one. And that will be achieved by making sure that we bring innovation to housing construction. One of the challenges that will always arise with the wishes of any government is costing. How much does it cost to build a good social house? So we're going to bring in technology. The Ministry of Science and Technology will be asked to develop materials that will develop social housing at 1/3 of the cost of what it is today. That's number one. Number two, we will need to make a decision as to whether we need to pursue social housing in terms of expansion across the land or moving up, because you have to think forward. Number three, we have to have a serious policy about slums. We must improve our slums, not seek to eradicate them so that they become new residences for the wealthy, as we saw in Morocco. We saw it in Morocco, but we need to bring adequate water and sewage management to slums. As the Rockefeller Foundation says, if you do this, the shack becomes a house, eventually the slum becomes a suburb. Thank you.
What we're going to do is we will embrace social housing as well, but we will regenerate the slums. By regenerating the slums, we are not going to embark on what is presently being done, where they will remove people and snatch their houses and never bring them back. When we are going to regenerate, we will relocate them and then give them the first right to refuse to come back. Because they are already in that community. If they want to live in that community, they should be allowed to do so. And we will also engage in serious technology where, and we engage in subsidized housing. Because, let us be real, the teeming population that cannot really afford the houses, no matter what we do, even if we build them 2 bedrooms or 1 bedroom, it is still not going to be accessible to them. So our government will earmark a certain amount of money, and we know exactly where to get this money from. Because we will get the money from stopping the subsidy on imported finished petroleum products.
But I'm happy to see that our candidates understand that consolidation is not an option. That's very good. Dr. Obi, over to you.
The number one thing that we have to understand is that housing is an important part of lifting people out of poverty. The major thing to do is to ensure that people have income that enables them to be housed, or those who rent houses on a long-term and sustainable basis. So an economy that enables improvement in income is fundamental. Number two, the law so that I can use my time. Number two, in the development and design of social housing, we must understand how the right policy triggers a stronger participation of the private sector in the provision of social housing. Number three, we must look at our slum environments from the perspective of economic corridors. If we looked at them as economic corridors, it completely shifts the way that we treat the poor, who are co-located in environments that are even detrimental to the achievement of our sustainable development goals. So my final take on this is to say that tackling poverty is hugely tied, according to research, to what we do with housing for the poorer segment of our society.
As I said at the beginning, the first thing we're going to do is to declare a state of emergency on housing. And with that, we will also have what we call a National Emergency Housing Fund to the tune of ₦1 trillion, which comes to about $3.6 billion. And the second thing that we're going to do is to ensure that we have a policy framed around something called CSR, collective social responsibility. Meaning that we understand that housing is not just a government problem to be solved, it's a societal problem that needs to be solved. So we're going to see how we're going to drive and inspire the private sector and ordinary citizens to work together. And a practical example of the kind of thing I'm talking about was something, a project we did in 1999 called Bushi Makeover. Some of you may remember that. It's a project where we mobilized over 2,000 people to paint 296 houses in Mushin, places where they couldn't afford to paint themselves. So we could uplift that place. And of course, that was very helpful. The third thing I want to do is to have shelters. And those shelters are going to be places where homeless people can go and stay for if they are willing to be part of a skills acquisition program. Before they go to bed, each one of them must sleep, must take a bath, so that they are able to lie down on the bed and they will remain clean. So that's one of the most important things. Last one is new cities.
Thank you. Enjoy the conversation. Okay, thank you very much. For those of you watching online, we have 4 hashtags: housing market, town hall meeting, hashtag town hall, and at CHSD_Unilab, which is the Twitter handle. Okay, great. We'll move on to the value chain that is also we have considered an important part, which is how you have the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria. Across the private sector, you have several mortgage banks. But with all of this, mortgage remains elusive in the country. It almost seems, or there is a systematic problem. So as the president of this country, how can we deliver a mortgage system that captures our local realities and exigencies, especially in the sense of the deficits that we all know? So I'll start with Professor Mola.
Thank you. As Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, I approve the license of the Nigerian Mortgage Refinance Corporation. It has done a few things, but not all. As President of Nigeria, I will encourage a policy shift. The problem with mortgages in this country is that the only people propose that the New Development Bank of Nigeria should be completely changed in terms of its mandate. It is doing something which I believe that the $1 trillion venture capital fund that proposed should do, which is investing in small businesses. That New Development Bank of Nigeria should be like BNDES in Brazil. It should be the mega development bank for the country and have a first-line charge on the consolidated revenue. Part of what it should be doing is to be funding the refinancing of mortgages so that there can be some sort of subsidized mortgage support for poorer people in the society to be able to access affordable housing, not just giving mortgages to those who are upper middle class and wealthy. So I will take a more socially responsible approach to mortgage finance in Nigeria. It doesn't exist right now. It's a game for the upper middle class.
Thank you very much. Dr. Bureaucracy.
You know, one of the things I would never want to do as a candidate is to raise expectations that ultimately will not be realized. Because it's important to be that. So, the first thing that I need to say is that there is a huge component in the housing conversation that the market can take care of. And then we must identify the segment of it that you need a subsidization. But the subsidization must be done in a way that is market efficient. So the work that we will do in terms of refinancing is that we would shape policies that would enable pre-finance and refinancing in the way that the market sees the incentive for the volume of business that is possible by targeting the people who are at the bottom of the pyramid. What that does is that it inspires entry into the sector by capital that was stranded, unable to find where to reside. So, the deepening of our country's financial sector, especially through the capital market, is going to be tied to that opportunity that the private sector will see in housing while the government augments through efficient subsidies. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The big elephant in the room is that you have poor people in this country, you have workers who are poorly paid, and nobody is talking about incentivizing workers to be able to afford houses. What I'm going to do is to increase the salary of an average Nigerian worker. Minimum wage will be paying back money. Well, with your mortgage, if you listen to me, you're doing well with your mortgage, you can refinance the mortgage, other things in your life, including sending your children to schools where you probably cannot compete with the rich. You can even go on vacation after you get the second mortgage loan. Isn't it not interesting that I'm the geographer here and I have a better agenda than the economists who spoke before me? Nobody is talking about empowering the Nigerian masses so that they can be eligible to take mortgage. If you go to the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, the collateral they will ask you, you will never come back there again. We have to have a policy where to raise mortgage for low-income workers. And the best way to do it is to give them a minimum wage that's a living wage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Torre. Before Mr. Dorothy go ahead, I would like to address two key issues, Mr. Torre. One, the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria has as much requirement, why not advocating or being an attorney for them, has the normal requirement for accepting a mortgage loan. And then, secondly, I like the fact that it was increased minimum to 100,000. My worry is, how do you manage the other side of inflation? Sorry, during if we have time, but I'm just saying you should put that in perspective, because there will be
the issue of inflation is something that has been around to prevent workers from getting their due for a long time. The question you should ask yourself, what was the inflation cost by all the subsidy frauds that happened? $6.2 billion of funding by
It's not my phone, it's at the highest.
Thank you very much, Senator.
So just to bring the reminder of the question is, how do we make mortgage financing available to all? That's the simplicity of what it is. And in a sense, cheaper mortgage financing. Many of the speakers ahead, my co-candidates, have already spoken about the fact that a significant portion of what it is that we have, that the players in the market today are people who already can afford mortgage finance. So there must be that part of the, like I said, collective social responsibility, which for most companies will come as corporate social responsibility. So many companies today are doing different kinds of socially responsible projects. We're going to be asking as many companies as possible to invest in social housing, and we will provide matching funds from our National Emergency Housing Fund. That also will then work with what I call diaspora funding. We need to get the diaspora who are currently earning enough, and most of them looking for ways to save their money and also have a sense of belonging in Nigeria, to have protected housing in estates that will provide infrastructure, we will provide power, we will provide roads, water, and also stand, invest in those protected, water, and also stand, invest in those protected housing so that they are able to do so with little or no stress about having to build themselves. So the two things, the last one very quickly, is that we have a stock of empty and abandoned buildings all across Nigeria. And we have some people estimating in the region of 100,000 empty buildings. We need to create a policy that says if nobody claims those buildings and can say
have Nigeria, I know how to do it, and we are going to make decisions. But the present approach is not working. This system whereby we are using Wall Street economy doesn't work. We have to use economic economy. Our banks have failed this country woefully, including the central. And that's why you still have in all the markets people doing contributions and you have cooperatives. What we will do, we will incorporate it into a market system where the professionals in the building industries, especially the quantities of vehicles, because the pride of the Nigerian is to hold his own home. And it takes pride in building it systematically. We need to work with the people. The system that we are trying to bring is so foreign, and people have resisted, and government is not listening. We are going to listen. We will make sure that the system where the people wanted is what we are going to do, so that everybody can take pride in going home and building it in a way that they will have the pride and will still be built within maybe 6 months or 10 months or 12 months, where the banks will be the custodian of.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
The next question we have for the candidates is more practicality. A lot of research and lived experiences shows that bureaucracy in government tends to be problematic. And so people don't take approval because the process is chaotic, it's stressful, and then there are so many agencies from. Would you like to start? Yes, you do.
At the core of every development activity must be a compelling vision. When people see the benefits of that vision, it's easy for them to connect to it. And the various of Nigerian-led governments will share the vision of doubling our business capacity in every year, starting year 1 with 250,000 houses, year 2 with 500,000, year 3 with 1 million, and year 4 with 2 million houses. Meaning that in the first 4 years of our administration, we're committing to seeing the construction of 3.75 million houses. Now, the thing is bringing everybody to the table, the states, local government, and the private sector, especially with the development agencies, to come and say how we each and everyone has a part. Each and everyone has a part to play in actualizing that goal. Especially when you sell what you would call the ripple effect on the economy. When you talk about everything that will happen when the private sector is in factories and all those kind of things that we. So the first most important thing in streamlining and getting all the agencies involved. The second thing is we must set a processing goal that says whatever application we set to within 30 days, it must be resolved, and that must be done within our first week. Every application done 30 days, and then everybody must find out what do we cut off, how do we cut it off, and that's basically what we're doing.
Question I asked. Being a civil servant, worked in the Ministry of Housing before myself, so I know exactly what you're talking about. The approval process, but the biggest problem is, as I said before, Nigeria is not accessible. It's because not every land in this country has been surveyed. So therefore, for somebody that wants to buy a piece of land, That's why you see one Oriental selling a piece of land 10 million. So what will the ordinary man do to avoid is start digging. And one thing that government can do is always there. Even if you see everywhere, is government is always catching up. Instead of government to encourage the stakeholders to have those infrastructures ahead of buildings. So whenever you are building a new Victoria Island or a new aqueduct anywhere, you will discover that it is going to become a slum at the end of the day because the necessary infrastructures are not done first. And this is what I call taking care of the small things so that those small things can take care of the big things.
In 25 years, the National Housing Fund, which is part of the national, the mortgage, the federal government's mortgage bank, has only been able to create about 17,000 housing units in 25 years. Now, this is a fact. You can check it out. It is a spectacular failure of political will. Let me give you an example. When Jackson Day was the governor of Lagos, we saw what he was able to do with housing in this state. When Fashola was the governor, there was progress in some other areas, but it didn't look as if there was so much progress in housing. Today, housing is one of a super ministry of about 3 or 4 impossible mandates. The first thing as president of Nigeria is that I will separate housing from those 3 other mandates and make it housing and urban development. Number 2, all the institutions in the value chain, I don't see in the current housing policy architecture which one has a strong regulatory role over building standards in this country and just making sure that housing policy is executed. The problem in this country is that there's no regulation of anything. There's no regulation of hospitals. There's no regulation of schools in terms of standards. There's no regulation of housing in terms of standards. Or if there is nobody respects and there is no consequence. Regulatory policy is important. Making sure that whichever institution is in charge of anything delivers on its mandate is important. That is a performance management issue. Performance management will be one of the prime issues, one of the major offices of my presidency.
Well done, sir.
So, the problem of bureaucracy and regulation is what the housing sector is going through. And so the most important thing is going to be to get the data that tells us where we are in terms of this over-regulation and for the entire government of what you need to do in transfer of titles and things like that to happen. We have to set process targets, 1. Number 2 is that there is something called blockchain technologies. What blockchain technology is doing in terms of digitization process is unbelievable. Yep. It removes too much human interaction and therefore saves the housing sector from the major scam that we see in the bureaucratic process that is the value chain. We don't look at housing as an insular sector. We look at it as a connector sector. As a connector sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will be running a government that is allergic documentation, the processing of this documentation, you can almost go around Lagos and not know, except you are locked the documentation of any particular house. And I said this as a journalist. There was a time a pastor bought a house for a prostitute. And I was trying to find the documentation. And I couldn't find it in Lagos. I used everything I can. They said you have to see somebody somewhere before you can get documentation. The reason is that nobody wants you to. In the UK, that was how, as a reporter, I was able to catch a lot of tips, because they have a central land registry. If you know the address, you will know the owner of the house and how much they paid for the house and how much it's worth. To do that in Nigeria. Without this, we can't even start to plan. And don't forget, with due respect, I studied geography and planning at the University of Lagos. And my goal is that as president, we will plan this country completely from the bottom and have a future that of course is digitalized. Yes. Digital.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shori. Still on governance issues. Now, Lagos State is the economic hub for Nigeria, as we all know. And it was the federal capital territory until 1991. So there were a lot of significant federal government lands and administrative properties in the state. Today, these properties are abandoned, and their total value runs in billions of naira. If elected president, how would your office facilitate the release, reuse, remodeling, and redevelopment of these properties in such a way that it will increase the national housing stock? So I'll start. Okay, let's start.
The reason I wanted to go first on this is that this was an issue that a policy pronouncement and design was already done sometime in the administration that I was part of. What is it that creates an incentive for the next administration to abandon a policy progress? Because that has become a problem, what I would do is to not even waste time. So the first thing that we must acknowledge is that our total budget now, 2019, is just $30 billion. It is not even equivalent to the budget of the New York Fire Service. So we need all the resources we can find. Therefore, there won't be any kind of time lag in getting the diagnostic on the existing houses of the federal government in Lagos State and immediately doing a conversion program for the private sector and public use of the kind that ensures higher productivity of earning for our country.
I will not give any more of our public institutions to the private sector. They have it. And what I'm going to do is to do an inventory of what's left of federally owned properties in Lagos. And the ones that we can convert to schools, we converted to schools. The ones that we can convert to houses, we converted to houses and given back to workers. I would love to convert the federal secretariat to a hospital. And yes, instead of dashing into cockroaches and lizards, the federal government of Nigeria is a wasteful government. If we convert this to private use, it's going to end up in the hands of our ministers, governors, party leaders, national leaders of some of these political parties who are based in Lagos, like Jagaban in Lagos here. We don't want to leave any more of our property. Nigerian properties should be used by the Nigerian people. Yes, sir. Take care of our social needs. We can't give any more of our properties to the private sector. In fact, I will be looking at how we can get some of the things that were sold to them at below market price back to the Nigerian people.
There is a stock of abandoned housing in Nigeria that has to be put up. And so we're going to set up a board specifically to look, and this will be set up with some of the most reputable people. That it will be like something like a shopkeeper. Exactly what do we have on ground and what is the best use that we can put into it. Some of that use, like has been said, will be hospitals, some of it will be offices. But another interesting thing that we can do is we can actually give these buildings to developers who will be able to let and rent them out so that we can have returns on the investment that the government has already made into it. So those places, there's so many people today that want offices. Young people that are looking for offices that are cheap and affordable. And then you have the federal secretariat there in Ikoyi, and it's empty, like my brother said, it's filled with cockroaches and lizards. Yes, there are people that are looking for offices, they are willing to pay rent on them. We will make sure that we find a way to commercialize every building, either by renting them out or leasing them out on long-term lease. This is what it is, so that we can earn money on the return on all the investments in the past. Thank you very much.
My approach is going to be very different from what you said. I would try to use all those buildings, take the stock, and use them as upgrade student accommodation.
Thank you. Thank you. Well,
It's working.
My approach will be very simple. Depending on where the abandoned federal property is in Lagos, that is what should influence what you want to use that property for. You bring in the experts. Some of it should be used for social housing. Some of it can be used for private sector developments of offices. It's a combination, but it depends on and what round, because that's part of it. You don't go and build a housing estate in the middle of a commercial office development area. So I think the location is what we're trying to use. It's a mix of social housing, public use, and private sector development.
Thank you very much. We have had an interesting evening, and please give a round of applause to all the candidates. We have also had quite some engagement from social media, and guys on Twitter have been sending in questions and comments, so you can always check the hashtag. And so now we are rounding up, and we'll just want to give an opportunity to one of the government the House, Babatunde Oladere Badamoti of the ADP, to say one word, one minute. One minute concerning housing in Lagos.
35 years ago, I like to have built 20,000 affordable housing units in 4 years and 3 months in this city, Lagos State. Since then, construction technology has moved on in leaps and bounds. And in the next 4 years, we will be delivering the minimum, and this is all about managing expectations, the minimum of 40,000 affordable housing units, 10,000 affordable housing units year on year. It is clear that we have land limitations in Lagos State. So we're not going to be doing 10 floors, 15 floors. Minimum 20 floors. Minimum 1-bedroom flats, 2-bedroom flats. Because of our demographics, 70% of our population are people between the ages of 35 and 18.
Thank you, Mr. Balamosi.
Okay, so thank you very much, sir. As a final word, we are just going to ask each of our presidential candidates to give us their final word. Please, 1 minute, 10 seconds to 1 minute. Start with Professor Lawal.
Thank you very much. I think, thank you for this discussion. I think it's amazing. I think the question of housing is important for Nigeria for 3 reasons. 1, developing the housing sector is important for inclusive growth. All the spin-offs of housing construction, masons, laborers, electricians, they all get more work and they all earn income if we develop our housing sector. That's number 1. Developing the housing sector is very important as a way to diversify Nigeria's economy. That's also very, very important. So I think that housing is certainly something that should become a priority. It is also a priority because developing the housing sector will be one of the ways to fight corruption in this country. One of the things that gives rise to corruption in the public service is the fear of growing old and not having a roof over your head. So, developing housing is part of fighting corruption. So I'd like to say that housing is a very important priority for this country, and certainly will be in my presidency.
Thank you very much.
The startup program, which looks at what a standard housing opportunity should be for the poorer segment of our society, is one of the flagship initiatives in our manifesto. We will completely accelerate its design and execution. Number 2 is that we will connect everything that has to do with expanding access to housing to the get a skill, which is what focuses on producing 900,000 diverse skills in our economy. The housing sector holds the promise for member skills building. Number 3 is that the economy has to grow, and everyone needs to be able to be productive and competitive in the economy. So, macroeconomic stability that would enable the poor to not have inflation. Thank you very much.
Housing under the Shura administration started from June 12, 2019 will be a fundamental demand for your future. They destroyed your opportunity to have a house in the past, and they have no plan to build you homes for the future. But it's very important to tell Nigerians that we can build poverty. That's what they did in China, and that's why they have what they call ghost apartments. They did it in Singapore, they did it in South Korea. It is time for Nigeria to have its own housing revolution, and a general revolution that will put an end to the old cargo.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. 2019 is not just any ordinary year. 2019 is a year to decide whether we want the old Nigeria that now has 108 million homeless people in the most blessed country on earth, simply because it's poorly managed. Or you want a new Nigeria where it has access to a safe, an affordable house and shelter. In the new Nigeria, every child above the age of 6 not only has a roof over their head, but also a bed that is their own. To all of this works, we've got to take housing as the center of our social development and our economic development. Like it's been done in the UK, in the US, 90% home ownership in Singapore, 70% home ownership in the US. We can also have home ownership in Nigeria, but that is in the new Nigeria. So vote for a new Nigeria, where you will have access to cheap funding to be able to get knowledge and all that you need. Thank you very much.
In a country, we have showing approximately 700,000 homes to be built per year. Simple maths, we have 50 homes or apartments in every block. This is achievable. Not only that, to build a single family dwelling home will take 6 individuals to work for 6 months. So if we embark on seriously building Nigeria, now we are going to have a robust economy. We have people employed and we increase our GDP. Therefore, I'm employing every one of you. Please take the time to vote Accord Party in the
All the candidates are active on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. But you can follow the conversation on hashtag housing market, hashtag town hall meeting, hashtag town hall, and please follow us at CHSE_Unilag. That is the Twitter handle for the Center for Housing and Sustainable Development. May I now invite Professor Luby to close the meeting.
Represented by the BBC now, we want to appreciate our special guest for tonight, the aspirants for the people that are the candidates or the candidates for the next election. We appreciate you. We appreciate your time. And we appreciate your sacrifice. We appreciate the fact that you are able to see what this center and the rest of you will see. From what we have heard from you, we discovered that all of you have passion for housing. And you understand that if you want to change the narratives of this nation, you have to pay a particular attention to housing. I want to say that for whether we rule this nation, understanding the mystery behind housing is key. And
they're already trolling the man.
like
They're already trolling
told that is the beginning of a discussion. And even after the election, whoever formed the government, the center in the university is willing to work with government to make sure that all Nigerians have access to affordable housing. We want to appreciate as many that have been around. There are many personalities among us that time failed us to recognize. We have MPs of organizations among us who appreciate the time. We believe that there is a passion for a better Nigeria, and that is why we are here. And I believe in God that better Nigeria will soon see in the nearest future. I also appreciate you coming. Thank you so much, and God bless you. So we just have photographs.
Should I continue? And
then we will close the ceremony. Let's just have photographs with you. We can all clap for ourselves for being a very wonderful audience. Our social, but please keep on asking questions.